The sun beat down on Strasbourg. It was July 1518. The air, thick with the scent of baking bread and wood smoke, buzzed with the activity of daily life. Merchants hawked their wares in the bustling marketplace, their voices intermingling with the clatter of cartwheels on cobblestones. In the shadow of the magnificent cathedral, craftsmen diligently plied their trades, their rhythmic hammering a familiar soundtrack to the city's heartbeat. Strasbourg, a thriving hub of trade and culture, pulsed with a vitality that belied the strange events about to unfold. The River Rhine, a silver serpent winding its way through the heart of the city, carried ships laden with goods and travellers from distant lands. Laughter and music spilled out from the taverns, where townsfolk gathered to share stories and unwind after a long day's work. The city, a tapestry woven from the rich threads of commerce, faith and everyday life, stood on the cusp of an extraordinary event, an event so bizarre, so deeply unsettling, that it would etch itself onto the pages of history. The tale begins not with the clang of alarm bells or the hushed whispers of conspiracy, but with the tapping of a foot, the sway of a hip. Frau Trophäa, a woman whose name would forever be linked to the bizarre events of that summer, stepped into the cobblestone street and began to dance. There was no music, no joyous celebration, no discernible reason for her sudden and frenzied movements. At first, her erratic dance was met with amusement, perhaps even a touch of pity. Passers-by paused, their curiosity piqued by the spectacle of a lone woman seemingly lost in a world of her own making. But as her dance continued, growing more frantic and uncontrolled with each passing hour, amusement gave way to unease. Days turned into nights, and still Frau Trophäa danced, her body driven by an unseen force. Sleep offered no respite, food held no appeal, and reason seemed to have deserted her entirely. Her face, contorted in a grotesque mask of exhaustion and ecstasy, reflected the inexplicable torment that gripped her. What began as the unsettling spectacle of a lone woman's inexplicable dance soon transformed into something far more alarming, a contagion of sorts. Within days, others in Strasbourg began to exhibit the same bizarre behavior. Their bodies, seemingly possessed by an invisible puppet master, moved with a frantic energy that defied explanation. Fear, a chilling wind, swept through the narrow streets of Strasbourg, replacing the earlier air of amusement with a growing sense of dread. The afflicted, their eyes vacant, their movements uncontrolled, danced with a terrifying intensity, oblivious to the world around them. They danced until their feet bled, until their bodies, racked with exhaustion, collapsed in the unforgiving grip of the plague. Physicians, baffled by the strange affliction, could offer no explanation, no cure. The Church, its authority challenged by the inexplicable phenomenon, searched for answers in prayer and penance. But the dancing plague, indifferent to both medicine and prayer, continued its relentless march. The contagion spread like wildfire through the dry tinder of Strasbourg. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly. A twitch here, a shuffle there, a sudden inexplicable urge to move to a rhythm only the afflicted could hear. Then, as if seized by an unseen force, individuals would break into a frenzied dance, their bodies contorting in ways that defied both nature and reason. The cobblestone streets, once bustling with the commerce and camaraderie of daily life, transformed into a macabre stage for a grotesque ballet. Merchants abandoned their stalls, their wares forgotten as the irresistible urge to dance took hold. Craftsmen, their tools falling idly to the ground, joined the ever-growing throng of dancers, their rhythmic hammering replaced by the chaotic stamping of feet. The plague respected neither age nor social standing. Young and old, rich and poor, all fell prey to its insidious rhythm. Children, their innocent games interrupted by the compelling urge to dance, swayed alongside their bewildered parents. Noblemen and women, their finery incongruous against the backdrop of their frantic movements, joined the growing legion of the possessed. The city, once a symphony of human endeavour, now echoed with the cacophony of madness, the air thick with the stench of sweat, fear and desperation. As the days bled into nights, Strasbourg surrendered to the relentless rhythm of the plague. The authorities, their initial attempts to quell the unsettling behaviour proving futile, watched in growing horror as the city descended into chaos. The dancing, far from abating, intensified, fueled by an unseen energy that defied explanation. The relentless drumming of feet on cobblestones replaced the familiar sounds of the city's heartbeat. The cries of the afflicted, their voices hoarse from exhaustion and despair, mingled with the gasps of onlookers, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and morbid fascination. The plague, like a malevolent puppeteer, had taken control of Strasbourg, its invisible strings manipulating the city's inhabitants in a grotesque and terrifying spectacle. Amidst the chaos, a chilling realization took hold. The plague was not merely a physical affliction, but a mental one as well. The afflicted, their eyes vacant, their movements driven by an unseen force, seemed to have lost all sense of self. They danced with a terrifying intensity, oblivious to pain, hunger or exhaustion, their bodies mere vessels in the grip of a force beyond human comprehension. Strasbourg, once a beacon of civilization and prosperity, had become a city adrift, lost in a sea of madness, its fate precariously balanced on the edge of a razor. Days turned into weeks, and still the dancing plague tightened its grip on Strasbourg. The relentless pounding of feet on cobblestones continued unabated, a macabre metronome marking the passage of time in a city that had lost all sense of normalcy. The streets, once vibrant with the colours and sounds of everyday life, were now littered with the collapsed bodies of the exhausted and the dying. The stench of sweat, excrement and decay permeated the air, a suffocating reminder of the plague's relentless grip on the city. The sick and the dying lay where they fell, their pleas for help lost in the cacophony of madness. Those who had yet to succumb to the plague's insidious rhythm moved among the fallen, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and grim acceptance. The nights offered no respite from the relentless rhythm of the plague. Under the pale glow of the moon, the dancing continued, the shadows of the afflicted twisting and contorting like phantoms in the darkness. Sleep, once a refuge from the day's horrors, became a luxury few could afford, haunted by the ever-present fear of succumbing to the plague's insidious rhythm. Strasbourg, once a city that embraced life with open arms, now existed in a perpetual twilight, its inhabitants caught in a macabre dance between life and death. The relentless demands of the plague took a heavy toll on the people of Strasbourg. Days of ceaseless dancing, fueled by an unseen energy, pushed their bodies to the very brink of collapse. Muscles tore, bones fractured, and feet, rubbed raw from the constant friction, left bloody trails on the cobblestones. Still, they danced, driven by a force they could neither understand nor control. The physical exhaustion was compounded by the mental toll of the plague. Sleep deprivation, coupled with the constant sensory overload of the dancing, eroded the afflicted's grip on reality. Hallucinations, both terrifying and exhilarating, plagued their waking hours, blurring the lines between what was real and what was merely a figment of their tormented minds. The plague, in its cruel indifference, spared no one. The elderly, their frail bodies ill-equipped to withstand the rigours of the relentless dancing, succumbed quickly, their weary hearts finally giving way under the strain. The young, their futures stolen by a force they could not comprehend, withered before their parents' eyes, their youthful vigour extinguished by the plague's insatiable appetite for suffering. Strasbourg, once a tapestry woven from the rich threads of life, was now unravelling, its once vibrant colours fading into a dull, lifeless grey. As the days turned into weeks, a sense of despair settled over Strasbourg. like a shroud. The initial shock and disbelief had given way to a grim acceptance of the plague's relentless grip on the city. The physicians, baffled by the plague's inexplicable nature, could offer no cure, their potions and poultices proving as ineffective as prayers and incantations. The Church, its authority challenged by a phenomenon that defied explanation, struggled to provide solace to the terrified populace. Priests, their voices hoarse from days of ceaseless prayer, conducted mass exorcisms, hoping to drive out the demons they believed possessed the afflicted. But the plague, indifferent to both faith and reason, continued its relentless assault. The cries of the afflicted, their voices raw with pain and exhaustion, echoed through the empty streets, a constant reminder of the city's plight. The stench of death, heavy and cloying, permeated the air, a suffocating reminder of the plague's growing dominion. Hope, once a flickering candle in the darkness, dwindled with each passing day, threatening to be extinguished entirely by the encroaching shadows of despair. Strasbourg, once a city that pulsed with life, now stood on the precipice of oblivion, its fate hanging precariously in the balance. The dancing plague of 1518. Even today, the name evokes bewilderment. How could an entire city succumb to such a bizarre affliction? What drove ordinary citizens to dance to the brink of death? The answers remain elusive, shrouded in time and speculation. In the 16th century, the veil between the natural and the supernatural was thin. Religion held sway over every aspect of life. Theories surrounding the dancing plague were rooted in the supernatural. Some believed the dancers were possessed by demons. Exorcisms became a common sight in Strasbourg. Others attributed the plague to the wrath of St. Vitus. While supernatural explanations held sway over many, others sought a more earthly explanation for the dancing plague. One prevailing theory pointed to ergotism, a fungal poisoning caused by the consumption of rye bread contaminated with ergot, a fungus that grows on rye. Ergotism, known in the Middle Ages as St. Anthony's fire, could cause hallucinations, convulsions, and other neurological symptoms, some of which mirrored those exhibited by the dancers. Strasbourg, like many European cities at the time, relied heavily on rye bread as a staple food. The summer of 1518 had been particularly wet, creating ideal conditions for the growth of ergot. Could it be that the dancers were in fact suffering from a mass outbreak of ergotism? While compelling, the ergotism theory has its detractors. Critics point out that ergotism typically causes gangrene and other debilitating physical symptoms, which were not widely reported among the dancers. Moreover, ergotism is known to impair motor control, making the sustained, frenzied dancing exhibited by the afflicted unlikely. Nevertheless, the ergotism theory highlights the precarious living conditions of the time, where food shortages and contaminated crops posed constant threats to public health. It serves as a sobering reminder that even in the absence of supernatural forces, the natural world could unleash its own brand of chaos and suffering. As the plague raged on, some sought answers in the human psyche. Could it be that the dancing plague was mass hysteria? Mass hysteria is when a group exhibits similar symptoms due to shared anxiety. Strasbourg in 1518 was ripe for such an outbreak. Many felt an irresistible urge to dance, a hallmark of mass psychogenic illness. While each of these theories offers a plausible explanation for the dancing plague, none fully captures the complexity of this historical enigma. It's likely that a combination of factors contributed to the outbreak, a perfect storm of social, environmental, and psychological stressors that converged upon Strasbourg in the summer of 1518. Perhaps the ergot poisoning weakened the bodies and minds of the populace, making them more susceptible to the psychological contagion of mass hysteria. Perhaps the religious fervor of the time, fueled by fear and uncertainty, amplified the spread of the plague, transforming it from an isolated incident into a citywide epidemic. Whatever the cause, the dancing plague of 1518 stands as a stark reminder of the vulnerability of the human condition. It is a testament to the power of belief, both rational and irrational, to shape our perceptions and influence our behavior. And it serves as a chilling reminder that even in the absence of a tangible enemy, the human mind can become its own worst tormentor. The dancing plague of 1518 wasn't merely a medical mystery, it was a societal crisis. Markets, usually bustling with activity, stood eerily deserted. Merchants succumbed to the irresistible urge to dance. Craftsmen laid down their tools, their workshops falling silent. The ceaseless drumming of feet on cobblestones replaced the clanging of hammers. Families watched in horror as loved ones succumbed to the plague's relentless rhythm. The plague unraveled the intricate tapestry of daily life, leaving a city on the brink of collapse. Faced with an unprecedented crisis, the city's authorities, both secular and religious, found themselves grappling for solutions in a maze of bewilderment and fear. Traditional remedies, from bloodletting to herbal concoctions, proved utterly useless against the relentless onslaught of the dancing plague. The physicians, their wisdom and experience seemingly inadequate in the face of such a bizarre affliction, were at a loss to explain, let alone cure, the strange malady that had befallen their city. The church, its authority as unshakable as the towering spire of Strasbourg Cathedral, initially met the crisis with a familiar blend of piety and pragmatism. Priests, their voices heavy with concern, exhorted their congregations to repent their sins, to seek solace in prayer and penance, to ward off the perceived wrath of God. Religious processions, somber affairs punctuated by the chanting of hymns and the carrying of holy relics, became a common sight on the plague-ridden streets of Strasbourg. Yet as the days turned into weeks and the dancing plague showed no signs of abating, a sense of desperation began to creep into the church's response. Desperate times, it seemed, called for desperate measures. Exorcisms, once reserved for the most extreme cases of demonic possession, became increasingly common as priests, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and determination, attempted to drive out the unseen forces believed to be behind the plague. The dancing plague of 1518 wasn't content to merely disrupt the social and economic fabric of Strasbourg, it also posed a grave threat to the city's physical well-being. The relentless physical exertion demanded by the plague took a heavy toll on the afflicted, pushing their bodies to the very limits of endurance. Muscles strained beyond their capacity, screamed in protest, tendons tore, bones cracked under the strain of the ceaseless, uncontrolled movements. Dehydration, a constant companion to the dancers, ravaged their bodies, leaving them weak, disoriented, and vulnerable to a host of other ailments. The lack of proper nourishment, coupled with the constant loss of fluids through sweat, further weakened their immune systems, making them easy prey to opportunistic infections. The streets of Strasbourg, once bustling with the energy of a thriving city, now echoed with the groans of the afflicted, their bodies broken, their spirits crushed under the weight of the relentless plague. To make matters worse, the unsanitary conditions that prevailed in the plague-stricken city provided fertile ground for the spread of disease. With so many people crammed together in close quarters, often collapsing from exhaustion where they stood, the risk of contagion soared. The stench of sweat, excrement and decay permeated the air, a suffocating reminder of the city's plight and a harbinger of the potential for even greater suffering. Section 4. Beyond the dance. The plague's long shadow. While the immediate impact of the dancing plague on Strasbourg was undeniable, its long-term consequences were perhaps even more profound. The plague, in its cruel and indiscriminate assault, left a trail of broken bodies, shattered families, and a lingering sense of trauma that would take generations to heal. The economic repercussions of the plague were felt long after the last dancer had collapsed from exhaustion. The disruption to trade and commerce, coupled with the loss of skilled artisans and labourers, dealt a severe blow to the city's prosperity. Strasbourg, once a vibrant hub of economic activity, struggled to regain its footing in the wake of the plague. Its growth stunted, its reputation tarnished by the shadow of the dancing madness. The social fabric of Strasbourg, already frayed by the stresses of famine, disease and religious strife, was further strained by the plague. The bonds of trust and community, so essential to the well-being of any society, were tested to their limits as fear and suspicion took root. Neighbours viewed each other with suspicion, wary of any sign of the plague's return. The social cohesion that had once been a source of strength for Strasbourg was replaced by a climate of fear and distrust, a legacy of the plague that would take years to overcome. The Dancing Plague of 1518, though a relatively short-lived event, left an indelible mark on Strasbourg. The city, once a symbol of prosperity and resilience, had been forced to confront the fragility of human existence, the capricious nature of fate, and the enduring power of the unknown. Yet even in the face of such adversity, the people of Strasbourg found a way to persevere. They rebuilt their lives, their city and their sense of community, drawing strength from the shared experience of the plague and the lessons it had taught them. The dancing plague became a part of Strasbourg's collective memory, a cautionary tale whispered from generation to generation, a reminder of the importance of resilience, compassion and the enduring power of the human spirit. Today, the cobblestone streets of Strasbourg, once witness to the horrors of the dancing plague, hum with the energy of a modern, thriving city. The echoes of the past, though still present, are now faint whispers, overshadowed by the vibrancy of the present. The dancing plague, once a source of terror and despair, now serves as a reminder of the city's resilience, its ability to overcome adversity, and its enduring spirit. The Dancing Plague of 1518 stands as a stark and unsettling monument to the unknown within the archives of history. For all our advancements in medicine, psychology, and our understanding of the human condition, the events of that sweltering summer in Strasbourg continue to defy definitive explanation. We are left to grapple with fragments of information, piecing together a puzzle where some pieces may be lost forever. Was it ergot poisoning, its tendrils winding through the bodies and minds of the afflicted? Was it the suffocating grip of mass hysteria, fueled by societal anxieties and the weight of unseen pressures? Or was it something else entirely, something that eludes the confines of our modern understanding, a chilling whisper from a time when the boundary between the natural and the supernatural was blurred and indistinct? The people of Strasbourg, caught in the throes of a crisis they couldn't comprehend, cried out for answers, for relief, for an explanation that could make sense of the madness that had gripped their city. Their cries, echoing through the centuries, remain unanswered, a poignant reminder of the limits of human knowledge and the enduring power of the unknown. Yet, even in the absence of concrete answers, the dancing plague continues to fascinate and intrigue us. Perhaps it is the sheer strangeness of the event, the image of hundreds of people dancing themselves to exhaustion and death, that captures our imaginations. Or perhaps it is the unsettling realization that such an event, however improbable, did occur, a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of the world and the fragility of our hold on reality. Whatever the reason, the Dancing Plague of 1518 serves as a potent reminder that for all our progress, we are still at the mercy of forces we do not fully comprehend. It stands as a testament to the enduring power of the unknown, a force that can inspire both fear and fascination in equal measure. The Dancing Plague, like all great mysteries, challenges us to confront the limits of our understanding, to question our assumptions, and to embrace the possibility that some questions may never have definitive answers. It is in this space of uncertainty, where knowledge falters and imagination takes flight, that we truly begin to grapple with the complexities of the human experience. Though centuries have passed since the last dancer collapsed in the streets of Strasbourg, the echoes of the Dancing Plague can still be felt today. It serves as a chilling reminder of the power of the mind-body connection and how mental states can manifest in debilitating physical symptoms. In our information age, stress and anxiety are ever-present companions. The Dancing Plague stands as a cautionary tale. It reminds us of the importance of psychological well-being. We must foster resilience and coping mechanisms. The Dancing Plague also highlights the need for a nuanced perspective. History is rarely black and white. Ultimately, the Dancing Plague of 1518, with its unanswered questions and enduring mysteries, compels us to acknowledge the limits of our understanding and to approach the world with humility and wonder. The human spirit, in all its resilience, continues to dance on.